Howdy! I have a question for you. Guess what type of hitbox is used for Hornet in Silksong? Option A, B or C? The correct answer is A. Yep, that's your tiny little hitbox that game uses to detect collisions with the enemies. And as you see, it's way smaller than the actual Hornet model. But there is a reason for that. If you ever played Silksong, you should know that Hornet is a spider, and it's the cloak that makes her look bigger. And the actual character model is quite thin, so it kinda makes sense. But what doesn't is that Hornet's hitbox is marked as enemy. Like, literally, you can select highlight enemies in my hitbox mod and Hornet will be highlighted. That means the game thinks that Hornet is an enemy to herself, apparently. One more interesting thing about hitboxes in Silksong is that even Aurora in the game has an attack hitbox. Yep, you heard it right. Aurora can attack you in Silksong. And in fact, it does attack you every time you dive into Aurora. It's just you don't take any damage. This way, Team Cherry implemented a water splash effect. One of the many tiny little details that makes this game so special. But you would never notice that without modding and debugging the game code. And guess what? That's exactly what I did. So, welcome to Silksong Hitboxes Overview. Today we're gonna investigate how Hitboxes works and how you, as a player, could use it for your advantage. And trust me, you will be surprised. But first, a small technical intro before we start. In order to make this video possible, I had to code my own mod for the game. Although Silksong does ship with a debug hitbox view function that is disabled by default and can be enabled through mods, but it works not as good. Like, you can see it on the screen right now, it's kinda hard to distinguish between different objects. That's why I wrote my own implementation in C# language, and now it looks much cleaner, in my humble opinion. Of course, you can also try out my mod if you want to test the hitboxes by yourself. I published it on the Nexus, and the link will be in the description below. Also, keep in mind we'll be focusing on the bosses in this video, so if you haven't completed the game yet, it may be a potential spoilers for you, although we're gonna cover only Act 1 bosses today. And last but not least, some of you may ask why are some hitboxes in the game are smaller or vice versa bigger than the actual model. Well, the reason is quite simple: game design in the first place. By making Hornet's hitbox smaller, developers can make things a bit more manageable for the player. This way you won't get punished for every single hit you miss. In some way, it's similar to the coyote time, one more game design technique which provides the player with a brief grace period of time to jump after they walked off a ledge. And yes, Silksong movement mechanics does involve a coyote time as well. Okay, now let's move to the first ever boss in Silksong that every player is familiar with, the Moss Mother. Although it's more like an intro boss, somewhat similar to Grafted Scion in Elden Ring. However, it's a very easy boss. It has like few attacks and one of the simplest hitboxes in the game. Just a single rectangle covering most of the boss model. Also, as you may notice, throughout the fight, one more big blue collision region follows the boss constantly, but it's not actually used in the boss fight. Inside the game code, it's called Wake Range, and it's only used to begin the boss fight when a player enters this region. That's it. As for the attacks of Moss Mother, one of them is when it hits the ceiling. Soon after, rock starts to fall that can damage the player, and their collision box is a bit smaller than the model. And those are not actually rectangles, but a different type of hitbox. In game development, it's called a 2D convex collider. There is also one more similar type, a 2D concave collider, although from what I discovered, Silksong only uses the first one. And probably the last thing I noticed during this boss fight is that when Hornet swings her weapon, a nail, the hitbox of our attack stays active for quite a long time. It means you can start the attack before your weapon's hitbox will touch your enemy, and when it does, after a brief moment, the hit will still land. A small detail you can use for your advantage. And now on to the next boss. the Bell Beast. This one is a bit more interesting as it has multiple different hitboxes. When it jumps out of the ground, it has a simple rectangle hitbox. At first it's quite small, but then it becomes bigger. And when the Bell Beast is on the surface, the hitbox changes to a proper convex collider, although you may notice it doesn't always cover the tail and the face of the boss. I guess that's a deliberate decision to make the fight less punishing, as this creature moves quite fast. Another attack it can perform is a high jump over the player. In this case it switches to even bigger convex collider covering most of the boss, excluding the legs though. And with all that being said, a tiny advice for you. If you feel you cannot escape this attack when this boss jumps on you, just try to press the run button, because I've noticed that our character's hitbox becomes smaller when you're running. Like, it's a legit cheat. Whenever we run, our hitbox becomes significantly smaller, so feel free to use that for your advantage as well. And probably the last interesting detail about Bell Beast boss fight is that it can throw bells at you, and those have like a full-size sphere collider. Next up we got one of the most interesting bosses in the game, Lace. It's the first boss that I encountered that uses a similar attack collider as Hornet, probably because she does use a nail weapon as well. However, the Lace's hitbox is much bigger than Hornet's, thus it becomes much easier for us to land the hits. I also noticed one interesting difference. While Hornet's nail attacks have a static convex attack collider, Lace's nail attacks are mostly animated. For example, when she jumps with a graceful nail swing, it includes two different colliders for one attack. So, even though this fight seems like a fair battle, but the reality is, Hornet has a significant benefits over Lace. And one of my favorite attacks Lace performs is this one, yet another graceful swing of a nail, alongside a small static convex collider. Next Act 1 boss is a fourth chorus. And let me tell you, this one was a headache for me, because I had to rewrite the code of my mod to make his hitboxes actually visible, as they were hidden by default for whatever reason. As for the boss fight, fourth chorus has like a single full-size sphere hitbox on his head. That's it. His attacks are also quite fast, especially the hand attack. It has a rectangle-shaped collider that you should evade at all costs. Sometimes a fireball also drops onto the player, and just like with the rocks previously, this fireball has a smaller sphere collider. But the biggest threat of this boss is when he performs a hand attack that destroys the arena platforms. Like, it's a hella huge rectangle collider. But besides from that, this boss has nothing interesting in terms of hitboxes. Savage Beastfly. Man, I hate this boss. Not only you have to make your way to the boss arena, but the fight itself is quite infuriating. What also makes it worse is the hitbox. It has like a single medium-sized rectangle hitbox, and it always stays the same. The boss doesn't even have a separate attack collider. His only way to attack you is through a contact damage. Well, yeah, technically it does summon other enemies time to time, but still, the fact that it uses contact damage only somehow makes it even worse for me. I like hitboxes Sister Splinter uses. It's one of the most funny colliders in the game, at least in Act 1. Let me tell you, those spikes the boss summons during the fight has like a huge convex collider, and it looks cool, not gonna lie. The boss himself though has like 4 different colliders, one for the head, one for the body and 2 for the hands. But wait for it, my most favorite attack is the slam. Just look at those colliders. I mean, it's hilarious how much hitboxes it lands, and on top of that it makes one more huge convex collider especially for the slam. Honestly, I don't know why Team Cherry decided to make the colliders that way, but let's just appreciate how cool it looks. school Tyrant has like 3 colliders, but one of them is special. It's the one on top of his head. A small white rectangle that you can take contact damage from, but you cannot attack it. I mean, you can try pogo over it, but you won't land a hit, as the top of his head is apparently protected. One more interesting detail about this fight is that sometimes Skull Tyrant jumps and makes the rocks fall from the top. Not only they all different with different convex colliders and textures, but upon falling, they spawn a medium-sized sphere collider for a brief moment. I guess it meant to be something like an area damage, like an explosion that you should evade. Moorwing is our next boss. What's interesting about it is that most players think that it's a bat. However, as you see from the name of his hitboxes, it's actually a vampire net in the code. It also has a pretty big hitbox. What makes it even worse is one of the Moorwing's attacks, when he rushes towards the player. But again, just like with the Beast fight, you can press the run button to make your hitbox smaller and hopefully evade taking damage. It also can throw projectiles at you. Funny thing, they have a proper sphere collider that actually grows in size before release. And at first it makes no sense, why animate a collider though? But I guess the reason is once more to make this fight a bit more manageable, because if Moorwing will spawn a full-size sphere collider right from the start, players will take damage much more frequently. And one more attack Moorwing performs is with his claws. I would not recommend jumping on him at this point, as he makes a pretty big convex attack collider. I have kinda not much to tell about the Widow. It has a big hitbox and it constantly throws bells at you, most likely the same as it was with the Beast boss fight. However, one of the attacks stands out. It's when Widow summons ground bells that works as spikes. As you see, those are huge convex colliders laid on top of each other. Other than that, nothing special. What makes this fight difficult is the fast-paced combat, but most of the time you will only take a contact damage. Great Conchflies is a boss fight that reminds me of a savage Beastfly for some reason. This boss is also kinda a bigger version of the enemies you will face on that location. The hitboxes though are pretty simple. It consists of a rectangle collider alongside a convex collider for the drill part. And sometimes they can throw a so-called conch projectiles at you. Those have like a small convex attack collider on them. Aside from that, nothing special. The Last Judge is one of the most complex bosses I've encountered so far. Not only it has different fight phases, but also a tons of different colliders. The main one is of course a contact damage hitbox that is pretty big. Although just like with Hornet, it does not cover the whole mask, so you can freely touch top of its head without taking any damage. The very first attack it makes is it throws her flail at you. Of course it has a full-size sphere collider, however it does not spawn a bigger sphere collider on land, as it was with the falling rocks previously. One more interesting thing I noticed is that while Last Judge turns sideways, its hitboxes becomes even smaller, so you can touch most of the boss's model without taking a contact damage. And when it spins the flail, it makes a huge convex attack collider, but it's actually pretty accurate. Next interesting thing is that while transitioning to the second phase of the fight, Last Judge sets the flail on fire, and when it happens, a pretty big sphere collider appears for a brief moment. Also, from now on, whenever it spins the flail, its convex attack collider becomes significantly bigger in size. So big that it covers almost half of the screen. It also spawns additional arc-like convex attack colliders in other parts of the arena. As you may notice, they don't spawn immediately. Instead, those arc-like fire projectiles consist of multiple colliders that being activated one after another from top to bottom. Oh, and one more funny thing. Remember I said the flail doesn't spawn an area attack collider, an explosion, like it was with the rocks? Well, now it does. And the fires that comes from the ground and those that spawns from the boss are also made of convex colliders. However, the cherry on the icing is the final blow, of course. It spawns a huge sphere collider that takes literally half of the screen. Just like I said, this fight is pretty complicated and involves tons of different colliders. Excellent work, Team Cherry, bravo! And the last but not least is kind of a bonus boss, a Phantom. This one reminds me of a Lace, it has a similar moves and hitboxes. But what I like the most is how it throws the needle. I mean, just look at it. It even has its own tiny convex attack collider, so cute. But a special attack of a Phantom stands out. It's when it jumps from the bottom with a huge area attack. Look at the colliders, there are 3 of them, 2 rectangular and 1 is a convex. They also animated and doesn't stay in one place, so you better stay away when you see one of those. And of course, the final parry move that Hornet makes. For some reason, it spawns a huge convex attack collider, but this time it's a player's attack. It's our collider. Although I don't have any idea why it's shaped that way and why it's so huge. And that's actually wraps our video today. That was all the bosses of Act 1 in Silksong. Actually, I was surprised how good hitboxes are made in this game. What I was not expecting is an animated colliders. Honestly, it's a tiny detail that you would never notice without proper debugging, but yet here we are. Once again, Team Cherry proves to care about their games. It's just I only hope more developers will learn from them. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a like, so you won't miss upcoming Act 2 bosses hitbox analysis video, as I will make one. Also, write down in the comments about your opinion. Do you like the hitboxes? Do you think they are fair, or maybe they should be different? Anyways, happy holidays and thanks for watching!